It's been a while, but Wave 5 of the Boost Course Pass has finally been released. In this wave, we have Tour Athens Dash, GCN Daisy Cruiser, Wii Moonview Highway, and Squeaky Clean Sprint in the Feather Cup, and Tour Los Angeles Labs, GBA Sunset Wilds, Wii Koopa Cape, and Tour Vancouver Velocity in the Cherry Cup. A certainly interesting lineup to say the least, but overall are all really good choices to bring back as these are all fan favorites, plus the addition of Squeaky Clean Sprint, which will be judged as a brand new track. As this is the penultimate wave of the BCP, it pretty much has the job of acting as a beginning of an end, so hopefully it lives up to that status and the hype for the tracks that were selected. With all that being said, let's start with the first track of the Feather Cup, Athens Dash. Athena! As you all may know, every cup in the past has a city track at the start, so I don't think it was a big surprise to open with Athens Dash, especially with feathers being common symbolism in Greece. If only Sydney Sprint followed that example. But enough about cup placements. How is the layout? We begin at the Parthenon by taking a quick left to a ruins area. We're given a choice of either driving to the ground or we can trick off of these pillars for a faster route, which leads us to the fountain. After that, we trick off a ramp and land in the Theater of Dionysus for a sharp turn. We then take another turn, which takes us to Hadrian's Ark for a quick glide. From there, we are given a choice of whether or not we take a half pipe, which will then begin the second section after a left turn. In this section, we trick off a couple of ramps back to the ruins area. After we take that path again, we go through a ruined building, trick off the hill, and finally take a turn to the Odeon of Herodes Atticus, which is guarded by Goombas. This gives us a choice of either going to the left, right, or middle of the track, with the middle being blocked by wooden piranhas. This can easily be broken with a mushroom or a green shell. You can also break through with sheer brute force, though that's only if you want to lose. After that, we enter our final lap, which has us take a left turn to glide to a small town. Yeah, not gonna beat around the bush for this one. The houses look pretty underwhelming, keeping the flat textures of the version of Tour. Luckily it doesn't last too long, but it doesn't make it any less jarring. We then either take a left turn or trick off a half pipe until we go through Roman Oroga, avoiding some pillars. The Tour version of this track had thwomps in it which were removed on release in 8 Deluxe, which I kinda wish they didn't as the thwomps did fit the theme. Anyway, we then trick off a set of stairs to probably my favorite part of the track, the mountain. We can either scale up the mountain trying to dodge boulders, or we can go through the mountain in this tunnel shortcut. After the mountain is done, we return to the Odeon of Herodes Atticus and finish the track. Back when it was released in Tour, it was my favorite city track, and with its return, it still remains as such. I think the best part about this track is that it didn't really feel like a city track, and it focused on being a Mario Kart track. Not to mention just how seamlessly all the landmarks are placed and just how beautiful the track looks, aside from the flat textured residents. The music oddly sounds a lot like the Tour version, just with a big band, which is something I ain't gonna complain about as it is already a banger. Overall, I give this a 9 out of 10, easily the best city track in the game, and a really strong start for the entire wave.
Hi, I'm Daisy!
Up next, we have a fan favorite from Double Dash, Daisy Cruiser. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a pretty big fan of Daisy, so to see that one of her tracks finally made it into the game is really cool to see. Though it also kind of stings that Luigi still doesn't have a track of his own, and I don't think any of his tracks are going to make it in Wave 6. Oh well, at least he still has his battle track. With that being said, has the track improved from its past iterations? Well, right away we are greeted with a split pass that its 7 counterpart introduced, which, as far as I know, doesn't change the gameplay too much. Though the right side is the shorter of the two, so I guess only go to the left if you want variety. Right after that, we are sent to the pool area, which, in my opinion, has gone through a considerable improvement. Not only is it trickable when you enter it, finally, but it also has the addition of floaty Goombas from Singapore Speedway. This is a good change, as it will punish players if they're not being careful, especially if they're playing on 200cc. After that, we go down a set of stairs, go through a hallway, and enter the dining room. And wow, this looks so much better than the original. The original version was a fairly dark room with not a whole lot to it, aside from the moving tables of course. But now the room is completely lit up, complete with a crown chandelier. The floor has even gotten a completely different color palette and pattern, and there's even Toad, Shy Guys, and Yoshi sitting at the table where they still move. I think this might be one of the most improved areas in the entire BCP. Seriously, it is night and day compared to its GameCube counterpart. Continuing on, after a couple turns, we have a choice of either going left or going into an underwater section. Now, in previous games, it wasn't a good idea to go right as it is considerably slower. But in this version, although it's still preferable to go left, it is a lot shorter, so it isn't the worst idea to use it, which I think was a good change. After one of those turns, we go back to the outside of the cruise, and after one last turn and a set of stairs, we finish the lap. This was a really good remake from its original, with it not having a single change that is bad, while staying true to itself. And the music is really good too. It sounded just as good as I wanted it to be. I swear this isn't the bias speaking, but I think this is a 10 out of 10. Like, really, I don't think there's a single bad thing I can say about this track. Man, this cup has been really good so far. Can it keep this pace up? Well...
Together, we will steal their moon!
Yeah, they did. Moonview Highway is one of 2 Wii tracks that were released in this wave, and honestly, I think it was a pretty good choice. Out of all the traffic courses that we have in the series, this one is easily the highest regarded, with maybe an exception of Mushroom Bridge. Has the course changed at all? Well, to answer that, we begin at the banner and have a choice of making a right and left turn. Or we can go up this hill and trick off the ramp. It is also worth noting that you can go up the right hill for a boost ramp. But after that, we go to another turn and do my eyes deceive me? It seems the bomb cars have finally returned after its presence in Wii. Well, aside from Tor, of course. As you may expect, it functions exactly how it does in previous games, where if you touch it, we then take a left turn into the bridge and go through the toll booth where we enter the most iconic part of this track, the city. It is pretty much identical to how it works in Wii, with one exception. I didn't even know this was a thing until I played some versus races, but the boost panels are in completely different spots in each race you do. This is unlike in Wii, where they are usually in one spot, so this was a pretty good change, as it would have forced the player to go in different routes in each race. But after speeding under the bridge, we enter the tunnel where we are given 2 options. We either take the left path where it's a bit safe, or we can risk getting hit and go right for a faster route. But after that, we then don't pay the toll booth worker a second time and finish the lap. So overall, the track is pretty much the same as it was in Wii. But like Daisy Cruiser, it didn't really need to be changed. It was already really good in Wii, so there was no need to add anything. Well, aside from surfboard cars, but who's really using those? The only problem with this track is that there are already a lot of city tracks in the game, so it's a bit odd that they decided to include this now. But regardless, this is still an amazing track, so it's easily going to get an 8 out of 10. I would have given it a 9 had the cars be a lot faster, as they are a bit slow in this version.
Sitting on toilet! Sitting on a toilet!
Just like our previous wave, we receive a brand new track of the Mario Kart series, that being Squeaky Clean Sprint. Actually, it was data mined in Tor like a year ago, so it's technically not an 8 Deluxe track. Shut up, it showed up in 8 Deluxe first. But since this is a new track, we don't have any comparisons to draw from yet, so let's treat it as a Nitro for 8 like we all did for Yoshi's Island. So with that, we begin at the front of the sink for a quick underwater section. We then jump out of a sink, off a towel, and after the trick off the notebook, we land in a filled up bathtub. There are a couple of things that we can do here. We can either drive on a row of sponges, or we can go straight down to potentially trick off some bath bombs. I absolutely love this section, as it shows how creative Nintendo can get with such an out there idea for a track. But it doesn't end there, as we go down the drain and enter its pipe system. While in here, we can trick off of some screws, or we can take a shortcut through a wedding ring. After we escape the drain, we then land on the bathroom floor, dodging puddles of soap. There's also a giant fan that will try to push us into some soap. This could be a good way to practice brake drifting so that you don't get sent off course, especially on, you guessed it, 200cc. After that, we glide off of a mini towel and go over a toilet. From there, we can either go to the bottom where we can drift and trick off some towels, or we can go to the shelf and take a left turn, glide, and finish the lap. However, it still doesn't stop there, because if you do pick the top path, there are a couple of places that you can go from only there, such as a spot near the mirror where you can snag items and trick off a growing mushroom. Though I wouldn't really recommend going up there as it is a lot slower, but the option is there. Honestly, wow, what a track. This has got to be the most creative idea for a track that I've ever seen out of Nintendo. And we've seen them do malls, airports, and even pinball machines. Everything about this track just connects so seamlessly and is an overall great time throughout. And the music is equally as good. It starts out being soothing and then just becomes so bombastic and, well, happy. An easy 10 out of 10. Seriously, you can tell that Nintendo had a lot of fun making this track. And with that ends the Feather Cup. This was an absolutely amazing cup, and what I think is easily one of the best cups in the game. But can the Cherry Cup keep up the pace? Let's see if they can with the 5th track, Los Angeles Laps.
Not into the pit, it burns!
It's been a while since we've gotten a track based off of America, and I think it was the right call to bring LA in Wave 5 as it fits a summer theme and is a fairly ambitious track. I'm not kidding, this is a section-based track with there being a new banner and completely different setting each time. But as I am a local Californian, I think it's only fair that I get to have the correct opinion on this track. Even though it's been like 10 years since I've last been to LA, but who needs details? Anyway, we start off at the Santa Monica Pier and take a left turn into Venice Beach. From there, we go under a lifeguard tower and go to the Venice Beach skate park. In it, we can trick off some ramps and get the choice of going into a newly placed half pipe. After that, we take a left turn, trying to dodge some sidesteppers, and go through a pretty run-of-the-mill road section with not a whole lot going on. But that is cut short as we go under a bridge to begin Section 2. In this section, we go through the LA Convention Center and then take a glider ramp over Dodger Stadium. I think my favorite detail about this section is the baseball shape that the coins make. It's a nice touch that Nintendo didn't really need to do. Oh yeah, and shoutouts to Super Sluggers, greatly appreciated. After that, and a quick left turn, we have a choice of either going around this building or we can use a mushroom for a quick shortcut. We then make another left turn and trick into 2 Rodeo Drive. After you trick at the exit, we go straight to enter into the final section at the Inglewood oil field. In here, there are multiple pathways that you can take. You can take the quickest route to the left where it just takes you to the next turn. Or you can take the right path where it splits to multiple different lines which will result in a boost ramp, while also dodging pump jacks. Still with me? Well, hope so, cause we still have more options. We can either go straight ahead and take the left or right section, or we can go up a glider and go through some dash rings. Okay, I know that was a lot, but after that we are finally out of the oil field and are back on the road. Though after that, there isn't that much, as all we need to do is take a couple more turns and go straight for the finish line. This was definitely a unique city track, at least compared to these ones, but honestly, I'm torn on this one. It has a lot of unique settings and every lap feels like something new, but it still has the straightaway problem that most city tracks have already. Even the song is just okay. It's definitely the weakest of the selection and one that I don't think I'll listen to on my own. I'll give this track a 6 out of 10. I think it's right down the middle of city tracks that I want to play, but I want to go out of my way to do so.
The sun is a deadly laser.
Up next, we have Sunset Wilds. Now for me personally, I think this was a pretty good track in Super Circuit, so I'm glad it's here. It especially stood out from the rest of the tracks in Super Circuit as the sun would actually set and would turn to night in the final lap. However, we already run into an issue with this track, the map layout. It is ridiculously simple compared to the original, with many of its turns removed for seemingly no reason. But just as long as it's fun to play, it shouldn't be too big of an issue. Also, why does it look like an... We start by taking a left turn and then take a right turn immediately after. It is worth noting that the mud piles here are not driftable and can slow you down, so it's best to hop around on it or simply just go around it. After another left turn, you will then be greeted by some boost panels that you can trick off of and some dyno tracks which don't really do much aside from giving you a slight bump. After this right turn, we have a couple of options. We can either go right and try to avoid Explorer Shy Guys dancing around during the job, or we can go straight ahead and use a mushroom to trick off some ramp for a shortcut. But after either of those events, we take a left turn, trick off some slopes, and then end the track with a left turn that is slightly dynamic. Huh, there really isn't that much to this one, is it? I don't really know how they did it, but they somehow made this track feel as if it's not faithful, yet too faithful at the same time. This track is extremely flat. But hey, that's not all we have to talk about, as when we enter into the second lap, the sky then stays the same. Why is it still orange? I guess it would look kind of weird if they kept the purple hue from the original, so I guess it's fine. It's when we enter the third lap where the skybox then turns into a nighttime setting. Oh no, this is fine. It's not like the one reason why fans wanted it back was to bring in a unique sky and interesting layout. Not at all. Seriously, what was even the point of bringing this one back if you strip it away of everything that made it unique in the first place? And yes, I know, the reason why they didn't include it was because of how Mario Kart 8's lighting engine works. But if that was the issue, then why did they just replace the track? We could have gone Yoshi Desert, Bowser's Castle 4, Chi-Chi Island. Hell, I would have accepted Luigi's Circuit, because at least I know exactly what I'm getting in that track. This might be a controversial take, but this is easily the worst GBA remake in the entire game. At least Sky Garden actually tried something different. Sunset Wilds didn't have anything at all added in its remake. It even had stuff removed from it that kept its identity. All of this results in a 3 out of 10. At least it's still a fine drifting track, but still really boring compared to the others.
I spent hours of my life stomping Koopas.
Up next, we have yet another Wii track, that being Koopa Cape. Koopa Cape is easily one of my favorite tracks in Wii, so it's pretty cool that Nintendo decided to double dip with this one, which for some reason applies to the other Wii tracks that appeared in 7. Though immediately after seeing that, there's already an issue. The color of the rocks now dawn a more orange color instead of its usual gray. It honestly looks fine, but you can't deny that its gray aesthetic is a lot better. But onto the track layout. We begin by taking a right and tricking off these boost panel... cool, they got rid of the Koopa sign as well. Way to get rid of the track's personality, I guess. With that discrepancy out of the way, we then enter a cave where we can trick off a ramp and try to avoid some Goombas roaming the area, with another ramp we can trick off of. After reuniting with the half pipe that was missing in 7, we then trick yet another ramp to enter the river section. It's largely the same as its original counterpart, as you can still trick off a ramp, drive in the river, or go through the blue shell to grab some items. We then take a left turn with a split path and go around the red shell to enter the tube. If there's one thing to take from this river section, is that it's extremely condensed compared to its original, which just makes it super cramped. Really wish they would have upscaled it properly. But now we enter the most iconic part of the track, the tube. This is largely the same as it was in 7, where it's cut in half and turned into an underwater section, with some anti-gravity mixed into it. There's even some anti-gravity boosters and even a half pipe, which is something I didn't expect them to add, but is a welcoming addition. I get that some people don't really like this change, but I personally think it's a pretty unique change that adds some immersion to the track, if that makes any sense. After we make a grand exit out of the tube, we finally make one final turn or trick off a half pipe to finish the lap. This is a confusing one, as it made some changes that honestly made it worse, but at the same time it's still a fairly fun track, and the tube section was a change that I like for some reason. The music is also pretty close to the original, though it is a bit cleaner. Though it is worth noting that the unique river music is finally back, and sounds just as good as ever. I don't think this will be final, but I think I'll give this a 7 out of 10. It's still a fun track, even with all of its flaws, so I can't really knock on it too much.
Oh, Canada, a home and native land.
And now, we have reached the final track of this wave, being the fan favorite city track, Vancouver Velocity. Despite being one of the earlier city tracks, which are usually disliked, this has stood the test of time despite how good city tracks have been as of late. So how exactly did they handle the variants? Well, we begin by taking a right turn under the Vancouver Olympics Cauldron and perform a couple of tricks. We then go straight up some hills into Vancouver Park in order to enter the Capilano Suspension Bridge. After a couple tricks once more, we finally get to the long-awaited anti-gravity section of the bridge. Many people have speculated this to be anti-gravity, and I mean, can you really blame them? But enough with the peak, let's go glide back into the city where we can take a right turn under this bridge, or we can cut it with a mushroom. After we enter to the second lap, we once again go under the cauldron and enter a boardwalk where we will then trick a couple times to enter Stanley Park. With that, we make a left turn where we will then drive along a straight path until we do another left turn to enter a gliding section. After that's over, we will then enter Rogers Arena where we will then go to the left path while avoiding Skinny Shy Guys. After we exit the area, we will then take a couple more left turns to enter the third lap. From here, it's a fairly long stretch of straightaway until we enter the Mazy Tunnel, while making a huge left turn, avoiding some swoopers. After we exit the tunnel, we drive through the Vancouver Public Library while making a right turn. From there, we go left back into Rogers Arena, where we once again try to avoid Shy Guys and go into the exit ahead. With that, and after a couple more turns, ends the third lap. Although the third lap is fairly short, this was still a really good city track and one that I think was definitely worth bringing up the hype. I'll give this track an easy 8 out of 10. I think if the track had been a bit longer and didn't have its straightaways near the end of the track, it probably would have been higher. But regardless, it's easily the best of the Cherry Cup. Admittedly, I have to say, this was a pretty disappointing cup. I like the tracks they picked, don't get me wrong, but I am just not a fan of how most of them reported to 8 Deluxe. And had LA had a bit more variety, I think it would have made the cup a little better. Of course, with the tracks that we received, we also got 3 new characters, those characters being Petey Piranha, Wiggler, and the long-awaited Kamek. Surprisingly enough, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about, other than that they're all really solid picks, especially Kamek for how much he's been snubbed in the Mario Kart series. Of the 3, Wiggler is easily my favorite as someone who grew up with 7, and with them being a super unique addition, with him turning red when hit. As for Petey, his head is really big, so it's basically playing Mario Kart on hard mode because you wouldn't be able to see bananas sometimes. I don't know, he's just a really cool addition, I don't really have much to say. And with that, ends Wave 5 of the Booster Course Pass. Rounding up the entire score of the tracks, plus the characters that were added to this wave, I think this wave gets an 8 out of 10. And really, that is mostly the Feather Cup that is carrying the entire thing, as the Cherry Cup fumbled a bit at the end, but did pick it back up with Vancouver. I think if I were to compare it to the other waves, it would be in between Wave 4 and 2, though of course it is subject to change at some point in time. That is all I have to say, but I'd like to hear what you guys think and what your rankings are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Oh yeah, they also nerfed Daisy. This is the worst wave, no question.